Alright, we're moving right along. Looks like we have the last book in the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series. Kind of. In the main series. Then we have the Do-It-Yourself book, which I'm going to take a look at. In the Rowley version, Diary of an Awesome Friendly Kid. So we're almost done with the Diary of a Wimpy Kid universe. The Meltdown. Greg is a snowman. We're purple again. We started purple and we're ending purple. I think they should have stopped writing these when they ran out of colors, unique colors to make the covers. Unique colors to make the covers? What am I talking about? Don't listen to me. Got Greg and Rowley in a snow fort. When snow shuts down Greg Heffley's middle school, his neighborhood transforms into a wintry battlefield. Rival groups fight over territory, build massive snow forts, and stage epic snowball fights. And in the crosshairs are Greg and his trusty best friend, Rowley Jefferson. It's a fight for survival, as Greg and Rowley navigate alliances, betrayals, and warring gangs in the neighborhood Meltdown. When the snow clears, will Greg and Rowley emerge as heroes, or will they even survive to see another day? This one doesn't end with the title name like they usually do. Did it? Am I crazy? I guess Neighborhood Meltdown was the title drop. Alright, let's get this over with. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Meltdown. This is the last traditional Wimpy Kid book I have to read. This is probably my least favorite, too. It got super cartoony, especially towards the end there. The big ending of this book is a crazy snowball war between half of Greg's neighborhood and the other half, of course. And the way Greg and these kids behave, it's like they act like snowballs are deadly. And the crazy thing that happens is they hold one another hostage in each other's forts, so they can't even go back to their house. Even the little kids, the younger, like 7, 8, 9-year-olds, they're stuck outside too in the nighttime, because this war of theirs goes late. You know, they're throwing ice balls at each other. It's crazy. I'll get to the real interesting part, which is my notes, because I cannot remember all the wacky stuff that happened in this book here. God, it was ridiculous. Frustrating even. So this book started with Greg just kind of being an idiot, not psychopathic. But he calls his school's janitor a possible caveman. He thinks that he was frozen in a glacier and then thawed out recently to become a janitor because he's so hairy, and I guess he doesn't match Greg's traditional expectations of what a person should look like. This is just about Greg's school being really weird. During the winter time, they're having a heat wave somehow, and the school's AC unit seems to be on a clock. So during the winter, it's always blasting heat, and during the summer, it's blasting the cold. And since there's a weird heat wave during the winter, the heat is blasting. But I'm just wondering why the school doesn't have a way to manually override that. Like I said, this universe is making less and less sense every book. There's this history project Greg has to do. It's like a science fair project. We need a trifold and to pick a country and explain everything this country's about. And Greg forgets about the entire project. So what he does is he asks Rowley to switch with him his finished project, so he would get England and Rowley would get whatever else country Greg was assigned. And when, of course, Rowley declines, Greg calls him selfish, which is just madness from Greg to expect that from Rowley and then to call him selfish when he doesn't just give you weeks worth of work with nothing in return. Susan's back at it again with the awful parenting. My least favorite character, Susan bans electronics on the weekends because she blames Greg and Roderick's misbehavior on these electronics. So the kids purposefully act out on weekends to make it seem like the technology makes them better. I just don't get why you would ban electronics on the days they're supposed to relax. At least limit it. Ban it? Really? He calls being friends with Rowley a lot to handle. This is a little innocent, but I still felt the need to write it down. So while walking home from school in the snowy cold weather, it's cold now, heat wave over, He passes his grandma's house before he gets to his house. It's a pretty long walk from school to his house. So he knows where his grandma keeps the spare key. So he just goes in to warm off for a little bit. They do put their clothes in his grandma's dryer to make them a little warmer for the rest of the walk home. In the end, Greg's mom, Susan, ends up being there and catches them, but she doesn't really yell at Greg, or Greg doesn't really seem to be in any trouble. She just drives him the rest of the way home. She doesn't seem upset by it at all, but it's just kind of fun that he broke into someone's house. I should say, he did mention his grandma was on vacation, so I'll give Greg the point on this one. Why not? The safety patrol are not letting kids walk in the street, which is a problem because the snow on the sidewalk is really high up. But here's my question. Why are the safety patrol able to have jurisdiction so far away from the school? Because they're busting Greg and Rowley about this when they're halfway back to their house. How far does their power go? Greg and Rowley get on a bus so they don't have to walk home. And what happens is with some other random kid, there was a snowball at the bus driver. And this bus driver stops the bus and says she's not going to continue driving until the person who did it fesses up. And she means it. She stops the bus and starts reading a book, which I don't know how that's legal to keep these kids hostage. But anyway, for reasons I'm not going to get into right now, Greg and Rowley made enemies with this entire bus. So the bus says Greg and Rowley threw the snowball. They pin the blame on them. And this causes the bus driver to kick them out of the bus right then and there, leaving them in the middle of nowhere. They could have been killed, kidnapped. That can't be legal. Come on, bus driver. Of course, Greg makes it home safely because Jeff Kenny has to write 10 more books about this world. So mom and dad are at work. Greg is snowed in and Roderick doesn't wake up until 1 p.m. So Greg thinks he's going to have the entire day to himself, but he tries to turn the TV on, but it doesn't work. So he opens the battery case, and Susan put a little scavenger hunt of chores to do to reward him for the batteries, which I think it's crazy. Give your son a break. There's no electronics on the weekend. On the weekdays, he has to work for the TV. I know Greg isn't a great kid, but come on, Susan. Maybe it's your fault. Maybe it's your fault he's just not that great. On this day, Manny gets home from daycare, and Greg has to babysit him. So Greg takes Manny to the backyard, because he still planned on doing all of his chores. So he starts shoveling the driveway, and he goes to check on Manny, who he left in the backyard. Manny made a staircase of snow so he can escape over the fence and try to run away. Luckily, Manny doesn't get too far at all. Some young girls, little elementary school level girls, show up at Greg's driveway and sees him struggling to do the shoveling and says they'll charge $10 to clear the driveway. Greg accepts, but then they pull out a snow blower and they get it done in like 5 minutes. Since Greg thinks it was too easy for them, he only wants to give them $3. And since he tried to rip them off, the girls shovel all the snow back onto the driveway to the point where it was even worse than when it began. Deserved. Greg thinks that the video game suns gave him vitamin D instead of the real sun. That's the reason he gives his mom to not go outside for the vitamin D of his own. He says the video games take care of it for him when there's a sun in the game. I'm just going to read this quote and let you take what you will from it. Quote from Greg Heffley: "The whole point of having parents is that you've got somebody to solve your problems for you." I didn't write much about the snow war because it was exhausting to me, and Greg didn't really do anything sociopathic, except for there was the little point where he wanted to pour boiling oil on his enemies, and because he read in his dad's war books, he'd make your snow fort on the high ground and then pour boiling oil on your enemies trying to invade, and he tried that with hot chocolate. Luckily, Rowley didn't make the hot chocolate right, so he didn't burn anybody. Rowley saved Greg from a criminal offense. Anyway, during this war, Greg and Rowley are huddled together while there's chaos all around. Rowley tells Greg that if he dies, Greg gets all his video games. And Greg stops panicking and wants to get that in writing right away. Lucky he didn't. I bet if he did get that in writing, he would have killed Rowley himself. Not a lot of notes this time. I think I'm getting tired of Greg and his stories, but like I said at the beginning, luckily, this is the last traditional Greg Heffley book I have to read. What can I say about this one? There was one page, oh, I found it, of the chaos unfolding. And I just want to point out one little bit here. Where is it? Right here, let me see where my finger is. There we go. Not even snowballs. Just a grown man straight punching a girl in the face. Teenage girl, elementary school level girl, who knows. But just straight up throwing hands. Super cartoony towards the end there. But yeah. That was the Meltdown. I'm running out of things to say. I wonder if Jeff Kenny does anything else. I shouldn't be mean to him. That sounds insulting. You did a good few books there, Jeff. I'm sure you're watching this and very concerned about my opinion. Sarcasm. Goodbye.